Allina Health is proud to support your Loons as the official healthcare provider of Minnesota United. Every day, we provide expert care to keep the team in top form on match day. All across Minnesota and western Wisconsin, you can find the same dedicated providers just a short drive away. It's expert care when and how you need it. Schedule your visit at allinahealth.org today. Allina Health, all together better. Welcome back to another episode of Sound of the Loons podcast brought to you by Allina Health. I am your host, Zarek Valentine, and here we have the one, the only, Dayne St. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Tan this time, so it'll actually be nice to actually be able to get some few words in.
Yeah, right? I appreciate you sitting in on the last one and kind of just interjecting. Tanny was very excited to be on the podcast, and I can see you're glowing as well. How have you been, bud? A lot of clean sheets these days.
Yeah.
Doing some laundry?
Doing some laundry, so never enough, you know what I mean? There's always clean sheets to be had. Of course, that's always the goal every game, but
what's the tally at these days? I mean, not that I'm keeping track, but I'm kind of keeping track.
I think we're at 7.
There you go.
7 and 13. So.
What's the most you've had in a season? 7? 9?
My best record, I would say, was probably, I had 50%. I was 8 and 16 games. That first year when I played. Yeah. But overall, I think it might be that like around 8 or 9. So
hopefully we can break that record this year.
We're definitely looking to crush that record.
There you go. And so we're going to dive straight into it. You had a ridiculous save against St. Louis. How is it to be back there by yourself in your own world, and then next thing you know, point blank shot? How do you keep yourself? Mentally engaged, just like ready for those moments? Yeah,
I think in my position, of course, it's a high pressure situation, so you're always gonna want to stay prepared for those moments, and you're always kind of going through all the different situations of what can happen and kind of being a couple steps ahead. Like, okay, a long throw is happening, a set piece is happening. There's obviously a high chance that you actually might be involved, or even when we have the ball, trying to organize guys. So if there's a counterattack that comes, that we can kind of deal with it before it gets to me. But
so is that all mental, or is there preparation, or do you work with Tom? Because no, seriously though, because you're back there. Some games you can have one save to make, like you can have one save, or it could be like Leagues Cup where you have 47 you have to make. But how do you mentally keep yourself going? Because you almost have to do mental gymnastics in the sense of where you're prepping yourself, but at the end of the day, you hope you don't have to make the save, because then you're obviously chilling. But like, is that just something where you just get used to keeping yourself in it and focus for 90 minutes?
Yeah, I think communication is probably the biggest one to stay engaged. And everyone sometimes is like, you didn't touch the ball, how are you tired? But it's the mental side of always staying engaged and thinking for other players so that they don't shut off, because sometimes that little yell to get back gives them the little extra motivation, or the check their shoulder or things like that, so that I don't actually have to make the save or the ball doesn't cross the line. Yeah,
for me, I always used to talk, one, to make my game easier, let other people do the work for me, but two, it also kept me mentally engaged, right? And I don't know if that's kind of what you're saying, but for me, I would always talk to my winger, always talk to my center back, so that if I told him to shift, I would have to shift with him. If I told him, hey, a guy's on your back, well, I might have to now cover because I know that he's in a certain space. So it sounds as if you kind of obviously give information, but you're always prepping to where you'd be like, well, I got to maybe pull a rabbit out of this hat.
For sure. I think I always look at, of course, I can see the whole field, so I'm kind of the eyes of the team. Yeah. And then it's my job to kind of communicate what I'm seeing and to deal with situations before they happen, and kind of put out fires before they turn to anything bigger than that.
Firemen, yeah, put them out. So then obviously we've had a pretty good set, I would say first 14-ish games. We're about almost halfway. We're a bunch of clean sheets. Is anything different? Are you doing anything different? Or is it just kind of under Coach Ramsey's system? Essentially now everyone's kind of just getting used to it, and we're kind of just slowly developing into a good rhythm to where we're all on the same page and just collectively it might be easier?
Yeah, I think there's a combination of things. I think for the team, we all know our identity. It's very clear. And of course, I think people kind of forget sometimes we didn't really have a preseason with him last year. So trying to deal and apply things during the season, which is obviously tough because you need to make sure that you get results during the weekend versus we kind of know what to expect. We had the full preseason. We've added a few guys. We've kept kind of the core of the team together that are playing. And then personally, when I kind of got back from Copa America, I started doing a lot of cognitive training. Recently, I've gotten to some functional patterns and just strength, kind of doing things a little bit outside the box, but things that have been working for me.
Yeah, okay, so that's a great segment. We're going to dive right into that. Explain that. So when you say functional patterns, explain that to us. Or if as much as you want to give detail into kind of some of your changes, because we're almost at a year's point to what you said with Copa. So what have you changed then? Let's go into that.
So I think the biggest thing would probably be like cognitive stuff. So like just brain training, training my eyes.
Is that the pen thing you do?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So that's some just like eye tracking. My massage therapist, Rachel, really saw some patterns with me from last year and kind of started to brought a few things up, and one thing's kind of led to another, and we've gone on this journey together. And I put a lot of the credit that I've done to her because we've kind of built a whole little thing in my we have like a little like cognitive room in my house now. So it's like I've really kind of fully dove into it, and I mean she's been the one that's kind of led it and really taught me throughout this whole thing.
It's interesting you say that because when we all have we have multiple different styles of masseuses or
massage therapists
within the club, and they're all different. Julia's different than Peter, different than So, and I remember you're sitting there like Rachel, she's on to something. So you don't have a home office; you have a functional room for like performance. It sounds like.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you take us a little bit in there? Motion balls? Is it like a gym kind of, but like stuff on the wall, lights, or
stuff
on
the wall. What are those things called? Like those, like like those little like blaze pods.
Yeah.
Things that light up, like different color, like ping pong balls.
Yeah.
Different mats for my feet. I've got like sticky notes up on the wall of like different colors and numbers.
Look at you.
So just a lot of like eye tracking.
Yeah.
Just basically training my brain because your brain kind of allows you to feel safe to be able to do a lot of the things. So
that's fantastic. I guess I'll have to come over and see that. Might not be as fun as like your grill patio, but it'll be good to get a little bit into the mindset of just kind of obviously it's working, right?
Yeah.
I think the save against St. Louis is really proof in the pudding. And I know Steve Clark. It's interesting. He had a routine he used to do is he had these sunglasses that would flicker. So obviously if you take a shot, it flickers. Next thing you know, your last perception of the ball was 10 feet from you. Now it's 2 feet. So it was almost reaction based.
Yeah.
And he would do these and he would just get walloped in the face all the time. But again, I ended up seeing him make some great saves, but it's just stuff like that it's almost like it seems might seem weird or corny or different to other people, but in your position, it's very like useful.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously so, like reactionary stuff. And then the pen one, the perception. So like if a ball goes from long throw to header to deflection, that's where your brain can process that, which obviously leads to saves, which leads to clean sheets, which leads to a bunch of different things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy. Wow.
There you go. You got it.
Yeah. That's right. Figured it out. Cool,
even like some like I'll do some stuff with like tennis balls just to like get some like coordinal movements in of just like, of course I have to adapt in the position I'm in. So just like moving your feet or moving your arms in certain ways that like tangle you up, but it challenges your brain so that like when things happen, deflection happens and you got to adjust, you can still feel comfortable to.
There you go. I wish we had some behind the scenes footage. Maybe we can put that in there somewhere because that'd be pretty cool to kind of see, show the fans like what you do, all the hard work. Because again, a lot of fans, all they see is social media. They see donuts and clean sheets and bricks and all these different things, but they don't see the 10,000 hours of practice behind, which is great. And obviously it's paying off in a variety of different ways. And now we're getting into the summer months, which means potentially another call up with Canada, which I know is obviously near and dear to your heart. We had Tanya on the podcast recently speaking about him and obviously his growth very recently within the national team. What's it like, man? Like playing and representing your country. I've done it myself, but obviously my wife is Canadian. My kids are Canadian, and I know how prideful, Canadians are. What's it like for you to hear the anthem, to be out there with your brothers, to beat the U.S., to, be fighting, to put yourself in the best position to be the one going into the World Cup? What's that like, for you?
Yeah, I think there's no better feeling than representing your country. And of course, you love playing for your club, but that atmosphere around either players you grew up playing with or against or admiring when they were on the national team and kind of being together with them, I think there's no better feeling than knowing you're representing something that's way bigger than yourself and you're representing a whole country. Yeah. And of course, Canada is definitely not a small country, so there's a lot of people that we're representing. And I think for us, just being pioneers and continuing to build our names for our country in the soccer and football world has been something that's been a big part of our journey. And to be able to host a World Cup, there's very few people that get to play in a World Cup. There's very few people that get to go to World Cup, and let alone to have the ability to do both on home soil is something that I'm definitely not taking for granted.
At Target, we're ready to cheer with the hometown fans and gear you up for an epic season. Whether watching from the stands or your living room, score big on game day with everything you need for the win. We're here to be your home field advantage at Target and Target.com. And what's it like for you? And that's awesome. I mean, I didn't get the opportunity and won't. But that sounds like, I can imagine how special that is. I've seen how much it means to you on the field and also having conversations with you off the field. But what's it like to represent somewhere that's also so multicultural? I think Toronto, been there. My wife went to college there, for those who don't know. And I've, spent a lot of time there. And it's one of, if not the most, I think, diverse city in the world. What's it like, obviously, yourself, right? Having a diverse background and being able to represent a community of people that's not just so homogeneous, right? It's you have a huge melting pot of Caribbean influence, you have Asian influence, you have a lot of people that all flock to Canada in a variety of different ways and then become, under one umbrella, like you said, putting aside their differences, and now you can just go out there and embrace just the multiculturalness of it.
Yeah, I think the difference, I would say, probably between Canada and the U.S. is like, the U.S. in certain pockets is a melting pot, but I feel like Canada is like a mosaic where you still get to celebrate wherever you come from, and the differences is what bring us together. And that's something that we talked about on our national team. I think of the 23 guys or 26 guys, or I think probably 20 of us could have played for a different country or something like that, or have some kind of lineage to somewhere else. So I think it's the differences that bring us together. And whether we're first generation, second generation, third generation, like growing up, it would be like, where are you from? And it wouldn't be like, you wouldn't say the city, it'd be like wherever your parents are from. And like that, those cultures get passed down. And I understand like a little bit of Filipino culture because that's where my friends grew up. Or like my dad's from Trinidad, my mom's side of the family's from Scotland. So like knowing and understanding those, I of course grew up with a bunch of friends that families are from Jamaica. So like you get to actually understand these cultures because they're still celebrated and passed down to the generation. So,
and how does that change you as like a person? Because I found that I've been able to travel through the beautiful game and live in Norway and play in Montreal in Canada. And I was drafted to Los Angeles, and then I went to Houston during COVID and stuff. So I've been very fortunate to be in a variety of different places, and that's really shifted me and changed my personality. How has growing up around all these different cultures made you the person you are, or given you a specific outlook on life?
I think it gives you an appreciation for where you're at. I also think it prepared me that I can go in any room and feel comfortable because I've been around so many different things. So it's just understanding, and you can kind of have that chameleon where you can kind of blend in because I've been in those rooms before. So I think, but the biggest thing I think is just having that understanding and that gratefulness of knowing either what my parents sacrificed or what other people have sacrificed to to get to where we are and to be able to kind of represent Canada that we all call home, or give us some kind of opportunity or something like that for our families, I think is something that I don't take for granted at all. And I know the guys that beside me are on the field don't either as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's super cool. And that's one thing that I love about just Canada in general, but also, again, it's getting to know it a little bit more than your average person. And speaking of which, you have someone at the helm who's American, but Jesse also is very understanding. I think he understands Canadians a lot better than the average American. Having coached in Montreal, he was actually my coach in Montreal. I asked Tanny the same question, but has Jesse or his staff done anything that's impacted you or something that you've, made an impression on you, you've tried to take back and either implement into your own game or even just bring back and affect the guys, out there in training?
Yeah, I think when he first came in, he challenged us all to be better in all aspects, whether that was tactical, in the gym, mentally, leadership, I think in all aspects. And I think when he came into the national team, it was a weird role for me because Milan had just left. So like the clear number one was gone, and it was a situation of who was going to be next up between me and Max. And I was maybe a little bit behind Max to kind of start out and just trying to earn that leadership and the trust in the guys because someone else had been in the net for so long before. So I think he really challenged me in terms of the leadership, and I think it's something I felt comfortable. Of course, I'm one of the leaders on the team here, but it was more so just kind of earning that respect and from those guys there and kind of building that leadership role within that environment as well. I think is something that where he really challenged me. And then I think, of course, his style is very aggressive and high pressing. And of course, I feel comfortable in those high situations, and depending on the way that we play, of course, I can be a little bit deeper here. But I think just rounding out my game, knowing that I can play multiple different systems, depending on whatever's needed. If it's to pass the ball short 90 times a game, or if it's kick the ball as far as I can 90 times a game, I'm capable of both.
Versatility is good. I know with Tanny specifically, we were talking about the physicality and it's some of that aggression, but just almost running towards the Flames as opposed to running away from it, right? Back when I first got here, Tanny was shying away from contact, and now he's initiating the contact. And, you're growing into your personality within our team, and you've worn the armband a bunch of times now. And obviously it's cool to see that role evolving with Canada, because while you are now becoming slowly one of the veterans of the group, you still are not old. You know what I mean? Like, you're not the old goalkeeper. He was so old, he wore pants. I love the guy. I've never met him, but he wore pants in there. Like, come on.
Only when it was cold. Do you know how cold those games were?
True.
I asked the Mexicans how cold that game was at Ice Teca.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was, watching him wear the pants and stuff, but it's been cool to kind of see the leadership stuff because I've seen that evolve. And obviously as you play and you go with the national team, that transfers back here. And that leads into potentially now coming back into a really busy week. We've had a long string of games. We've had Open Cup. I think this is the first time in my recollection we've won Saturday, Wednesday, the entire month without a break. I don't think I've ever been a part of that.
We've had it a couple of times. Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. So maybe my teams weren't good enough to be in all the competitions. So for me, it's new. But yeah, we've been going Saturday, Wednesday. We had some Open Cup games, but now we have a really busy, wild week going into Vancouver away and Seattle away. Little double trip. Take us into your mindset, the team's mindset, just going into what are some pretty big games against some teams on the top end of the Western table. Yeah,
I think one for Vancouver, I think they're going to have one eye on the final. They have the biggest game in their club's history, maybe a Canadian club's history, with the Champions League final on Sunday. So I know that's kind of probably in the back of their mind. So I'm looking at it as they could be potentially a little bit vulnerable. Of course, a final like that is so good, but I think we're looking at it as we can catch them in the table, and we want to continue to close that gap and then to pass them. So these two games, there's going to be a big break, or a little bit of a break, and I'll be gone for the next few games after that. So I'm looking at it as last couple of games to really make an impression for the club here before I shift my focus.
Is that when you would officially
onto
leave?
The national team? Yeah.
So it'd be after the Seattle game.
After the Seattle game,
okay.
And then my knock on wood, we make it to the finals, and we win the Gold Cup, and then my first game back would be the Open Cup quarterfinals, actually. So, yeah.
Man. Well, listen, Puerto Rico's not in it, so you guys can go on and do as great as you want. That's no problem with me. What's it like playing on the road? I know Vancouver and Seattle both pose different challenges, both turf, but winning in MLS is difficult. Have you found any sort of rhythm or something that's made you feel more comfortable on the road throughout your time playing games? Or is it just business as usual? You try to stay the exact same whether you're at home or away?
Yeah, I think I try to kind of keep it similar. I think in the Western Conference, our away games are a little bit more difficult just based on, one, distance traveled, two, you have a few teams at altitude, or you have the Texas heat that you have to deal with, or you have turf fields, which unfortunately are still a part of it. But in an ideal situation, you'd of course like to be playing on grass. But I think each away market, I mean, even some teams, when they have to come and play us when it's cold, they obviously don't want to do that. So it becomes an advantage.
What do people complain about at Allianz?
It becomes an advantage for us when it's cold. You know what I mean? So I think the away games in our conference are a little more difficult just based on the geographical region. But for me, I try to keep everything the same and as much as I can.
Speaking of which, I'm going to ask you about it. You're very routine based. Mm-hmm. You're very routine based. Is that just and the fans you guys don't even see half of it. But is that just something where some of it's just the way you've gone, some of it's obviously you have a lot of different things that you do in your pregame. I've talked to Kelvin about it. You could talk to Will, who's like the exact opposite. Will just kind of vibes a little bit. Yeah. Bongi, I'm sure, is not thinking about his routine much as well as some guys. But is that just comfort? Is that just something things at work, or is it just superstition, or where do these things fall in the realm of Dayne's pregame habits? Let's just say that.
I think a little bit of everything. I think for me, of course, when you go to an away field, you never know how the field's going to be. So it became a thing for me to go look at both 18s and see how's the ball going to bounce today. Is there maybe bumps in the field that I have to be cautious of? So it kind of came to that, and then the goals aren't always the same size, or they're pushed in a little bit more. So it just became, and things have kind of evolved. So I think some of it is maybe a little bit of superstition, but I think also doing all the things I know now, when I'm doing those things, it's putting me in game mode, and my mentality now is this isn't just a regular day, that this is the biggest day of the week, and you need to make sure that you're showing up. So it's about setting my mentality now of like, this is the most important moment.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good ending point, because you trained your body to where when you do A, B, C, that might be training, and then you do X, Y, Z, where in game mode your body flips a switch, and then you go out and you become one of the best goalkeepers in the league like you've been. And for me, it's been an absolute pleasure to kind of see you evolve, more so honestly as a person and as a leader. I always knew you were a pretty damn good goalie. So when you make saves, I'm not really surprised. But when you kind of grow into yourself as a personality and as someone within the locker room that the young guys can now go talk to regardless of position, and then some of the older guys, will confide in when you're making decisions around the team stuff, it's just been awesome to see. So thank you very much for taking the time to stop in. Before you left on the Sound of Loons podcast, brought to you by Line Health. You came back again once, so I don't know if we can get you one more time. Maybe after you're away, it'd be great to potentially have you come back on and chat with me for a bit. But thanks for listening, and if you have any parting words for the boys or for anyone, or no?
Yeah, no, appreciate everyone listening, of course. So
listen and subscribe. I gotta start putting that in there. We gotta listen and subscribe and like.
What's our subscriber count? Come on, we gotta get it up, so then Line Health can give us some more money. We can have maybe host a few more people. Maybe get some bigger guests.
There you go. Yeah, I know. We'll do our best. But again, thank you so much for stopping by. And that's us for this time.
Thank you very much.